Hey, Facebook and Instagram, how are you? Welcome to the Dreaming Out Loud podcast brought to you by the Dream Center Co-working and Business Support Services. It's your main man, Action Jackson. I got a bunch of screens going on right now trying to multitask and do technology. I promise next week I'm going to be doing this live from my office, my real office, not my home office. But I am excited about this Dreaming Out Loud podcast series that we have created for the month of Black History Month. And so all month long, every Monday, we have some dynamic speakers that'll be joining us and talking about some great things. Last week, my good friend and brother, Kari Blasingame from the Chicago Bears, came on and talked about the importance of investing and to help level you up. You know, multiple streams of income is the key to wealth. And so that was a great conversation. Tonight, we are in for a treat. I am so excited to have joining us shortly the CEO of Business Leadership Council, Miss Arielle Johnson. She is profound when it comes to business, contracting, advocating for business owners, and just really helping African American entrepreneurs level up and build their businesses. But listen, if you're tuning in, come on in. We're going to get started shortly. I just sent my email out. I know you all will be joining us. But next week, Monday, we have Miss Tiffany Hope, CEO of Studio 92 Hair. She's a young African-American woman who has created a multi-million-dollar hair business. And then that final Monday of February, we'll have my good friend and brother Far Gray, who made his first million at 15. He's a best-selling author. I'm sure you guys know him from social media. So it's going to be a great week. If you don't know, the Dream Center Co-working and Business Support Services is a co-working space located in the Austin community on the west side of Chicago. But we also provide support services nationwide to aspiring entrepreneurs looking to start their business or current entrepreneurs looking to grow their business. Make sure you check out our services. Check out our services on www.thedreamcenter.com. And we are so excited to kick off this series. So without further ado, she doesn't need a very exhaustive introduction because her name and the work that she does speaks for itself. Ms. Arielle Johnson, as I aforementioned, is the CEO of the Business Leadership Council. She is also the owner and chief executive officer of Fierce Staffing, a premier staffing company in the United States. She is from Detroit, Michigan, but she is a true Chicagoan now making waves. And I want to bring to look to the stage, to the screen, to the virtual platform, Miss Arielle Johnson.
Yay. Hey. Hello.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm good. I'm so excited that you are here. I appreciate you answering the call to join us on live. And the
Absolutely.
goal of this is really to just make sure that we are reaching and teaching as many people as we can in the entrepreneurial space. And I know you have a passion, you're an advocate for that. And so we're going to kick it off tonight. Not believers, I'm thinking I'm on the radio. We're going to kick it off tonight. All of you go-getters. How about that?
Yeah.
And, Arielle, I want you to jump in and, tell us who you are, a little bit about yourself.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. So I am, as Mr. Action Jackson said, I'm from Detroit. I've been in Chicago about 5 years. But initially, I started a company called Fierce Staffing. Fierce is a hospitality and event production staffing firm. We've worked on major events such as Afrotech. We serve as their employer of record. We've worked on Final Fours, Super Bowls, you name it. And so primary reason Fear Staffing actually started was to support workforce development initiatives within the city of Detroit and connect some of the women that we were trying to serve through a nonprofit to real work. And so we blended the work I was doing in the hospitality and events industry with our love for our community. And so all that advocacy stuff connected me to working in the public sector. And so I met Mayor Duggan and Charity Dean in the city of Detroit and ended up working and leading operations for the Civil Rights Department. And in that department, we did a lot of civil rights investigations, advocacy for the business community in the city of Detroit, such as certifications. And we were doing certifying there and connecting to city procurement opportunities, language services, and other things as it relates to equity and inclusion in Detroit. That opportunity launched me to the state of Illinois to lead the Business Enterprise Program, which is the supplier diversity group, if you will, of the state of Illinois, ensuring that minorities, women, and persons with disabilities have access to state procurement opportunities. And that office then moved to Commission on Equity and Inclusion, which is the first commission of its kind for the state of Illinois. All of that brought me back here. Ended up coming back to my company after I finished in government and joining Business Leadership Council. And so now I am educating my community as well as advocating for my community as an entrepreneur, and making sure that we have access and opportunity to continue to contribute to our growth as a society.
Yeah, that's amazing. And thank God that, your work in Detroit got you to Illinois. And you're definitely a voice for the voiceless. And I had an interview today. Shout out to the Munir Muhammad show. I had an interview with them today, and we just kind of talked about the hurdles of doing business, right? And so I want you to explain the BEP program in the state of Illinois, why it was created, and what it actually does for people that don't know.
Absolutely. So we know why the BEP, why the program was created, right? So it was created because there was a disparity that existed. There was not representation of non-white men it was all white men, essentially, that had access to government procurement. And so there needed to be an organization, an act. It's the BEP Act that was initiated to ensure that minorities, women, persons with disabilities, as well as veterans had access to the same opportunities. And so that department has gone through a variety of changes over the years. It is led by a BEP council, and it also has now there are commissioners that oversee the BEP Council through the Commission on Equity and Inclusion. Additionally, BEP does not just do certifications, but it also does compliance. So once me as a BEP vendor, I get a contract, that department also oversees making sure that the primes who have received a contract to do business with a BEP vendor are actually paying that vendor, right? So they go back. So we had a diversity monitoring system where we would actually make sure that payments were sent to those subs and then verify with the subs that they received the payments. There are goals that are set on a specific portion of the state budget. And those goals vary based on a goal setting methodology. And that methodology is based off of the number of vendors that are within the system and show that they're willing and ready to do business. And that's why the conversation that you're leading today is so important, because if there are not Black firms or any firms that are qualified to be BEP vendors, it impacts the goal, right? Because they can't set a goal. They can't set a 50% goal to do business with a minority vendor if it doesn't show that whatever they're purchasing, there's not 50% representation within their database. And so that's why these conversations are so important, so that, us just showing up is a part of advocacy.
I'm glad you said that. And I wanted you to explain the BEP certifications, because I know a lot of people just never heard of it. I've been in rooms with business owners who are like, what is that? We hear the MBE, minority business, WB, women business, veteran business, disadvantaged business. But BEP is significant. Now, is that only a state of Illinois certification?
So BEP is specific to the state of Illinois. However, they have reciprocity. And so what that means is if you're certified with BEP, then you can also be certified with the Women's Business Development Center, or you can also be certified with Cook County. The city of Chicago, I don't believe they have the full reciprocity with the state right now. And so they have a separate process. So I always recommend BEP because it's free. So that's your opportunity to figure out how to get through certification, what the questions are, getting used to the process for free without spending money. You would have to pay for WBDC, you would have to pay for City of Chicago. Cook County is very flexible, and it's an amazing team over there. Nicole Mandeville actually worked with me together at the state as well. So, but BEP is free. And a lot of times, certain vendors will utilize the BEP certification as verification, and they may not make you go and get certified in other spaces. And so this is not just unique to the state of Illinois. Every state has their own process, but it's all very similar.
I'm glad you said that. Great. So why is it important? Why is business certification so crucial for African American entrepreneurs, and how can it transform their access to government and corporate contracts?
Absolutely. So number one, it's most important because it opens up your world to another level of information and network and access, which the data shows. McKinsey did some research during the pandemic that analyzed why Black businesses were not achieving some of the success of their white counterparts, and access to a network was a major piece of that. And so just being certified now, you're now a part of other communications, of other capacity building opportunities. And now you're just getting notifications of business opportunities that are relevant to your industry. And so that alone is just, even if you have no intention on bidding, that alone just starts to open you up to learn, to understanding how that ecosystem even operates. Which is so important for us. Also, you come up in vendor searches. And so we've had large corporations that may come to town. Even now we have big events that come to Chicago all the time, and they may not have their own supplier portal, what have you. That vendor search for BEP vendors is public to anybody. So if someone just wants to look for MBEs, WBEs, what have you, they just go to the BEP vendor portal and they type in what they're looking for, and those vendors will pop up. I've had several people send me that list, and it's frustrating because I'm like, there's so many folks who are missing off of this. Let me send you another list, right? Mm-hmm. And so that's why that's just a few of the reasons. It's not guaranteed a guaranteed contract by any means. There's a lot more work that's between certification and a contract, but it is a great start.
Okay, I'm glad you said we're going to touch on that, but before we get there, what are some of the common hurdles that you've seen with African American businesses that they face in obtaining these certifications? And what strategies do you recommend to overcome them? So what are some common pitfalls? Because I'm sure you've heard horror stories. You've seen businesses say, oh, I'm going to get certified, and then they don't get it, or you ask them and they're like, oh, I forgot, or something. But what are some of the reasons why? What are some of the pitfalls?
Yes, other than a lack of information, which we're solving here today, is not having your affairs in order. And so there you need your tax information. You need your leases. Even if you're running business out of your home, like you can be certified if you are a home office, if you're a home-based business, right? But you need access to the right paperwork. And unfortunately, majority of the Black firms that are running have one or two employees or one person show, right? And so they don't have they don't have the ability to assign someone to be responsive while they're trying to go through the certification process. And so if it's your first time and you're not working with someone, there may be a lot of back and forth. They call it the Q&A phase. So you've turned in all your documents, you've turned in your application, and now there's a time where the BEP certification team is sending you questions, and you have a deadline to answer before they void out your application and you have to start all over. So we're so busy in the day-to-day of our companies, we don't have the time to now follow up and say, oh, I missed giving my birth certificate. Okay, here you are. I missed this page of my taxes. Here you are. And then what happens is all the emails pile up. And then I think it's 60 days now that they have. The 60 days go by, and then your application is void. You got to start all over. And who has time for that?
Right.
And so that's just a disparity that we have in terms of being able to have full capacity of having a team. We don't have an account manager I can assign.
Right.
A majority of us don't have an account manager we can assign to getting this process completed.
Saying, hey, Susie, this is your job, and make sure you get this done and stay on top of it. But as entrepreneurs, small business owners, even some mid-sized business owners, we wear multiple hats. Yes. And it's the CEO, the CFO, the COO, the janitor, security, accountant, and these things kind of get, dropped by the wayside, but it's important.
Right.
And so let's talk about some success stories, right? Because we've talked about some hurdles, but could you share, and if you have one, an inspiring story of a business that thrived after certification, and kind of highlight the tangible benefits they experienced? So I can say for myself now, before you answer that real quickly, when the COVID pandemic happened, they needed vendors really bad, so they cut a lot of red tape, right? And your companies didn't have to have all of the certifications as long as you had the product that they needed in that timely fashion.
Correct.
So I was able to secure a substantial government contract without the red tape of minority certification or BEP. They didn't even ask for it,
Right.
But in most cases, and when I say substantial, I won a very nice contract. So that's a tangible benefit. But in those cases, it's not always a global pandemic. So you need the certification. But once the people tuned in, and we shout out to everybody that's tuned in, listening to this information. Let's tell them what are some of the benefits of having having this one specifically, that BP.
Yes. So we had one family-owned transportation company that was doing business with DHS, the Department of Human Services, and they were supporting with, I can't remember the proper name, but essentially picking up any Medicaid subscribers to be able to go to their doctor's appointments, right? So there's so many different goods and services that are purchased through the state. And so she was able to leverage her certification to get that opportunity, which is widely needed. Transportation is a space where we are not widely represented, and we don't really have a lot of ability to scale. But her and her husband purchased a couple of vans, and they were able to hire drivers and get access to the proper insurances. And they were able to get their start at the transportation industry there. We have several members of Business Leadership Council who have had opportunities to participate in state procurement. There's a lot of work to do to ensure continued representation, but absolutely, you can even start small. A program I want to tell you all about is the Small Business Set Aside program. And one success story that I would say is that $63 million of state procurement was done through the Small Business Set Aside program last year.
Wow.
All procurements under $50,000. And all procurements are subject to the Small Business Set Aside program. What that means is you don't have to go through such a strenuous process and I'll take a contract $50,000 and under. I don't know about you, but I will. Right.
I'll definitely take it.
Right. All procurements that are under 50K are eligible for Small Business Set Aside. And so you can be that BEP vendor and Small Business Set Aside. Those are two different things, because Small Business Set Aside is just all small businesses, not minority women. It's just all. So the misconception is that if I'm certified as BEP, I don't also have to sign up for the small business program. Those are two different things. And so one thing that was attractive to us at the state, that there's a small business set aside opportunity and they're a BEP vendor that's qualified. That's awesome. And the process is not as strenuous, is not as challenging, and the agencies can work with you directly to try to get that done. And so signing up to be eligible for small business set aside is a whole nother missed opportunity that even BEP vendors miss out on.
Now that's interesting, because I think I'm very astute when it comes to knowing what's going on. And I might have missed the memo about the small business set aside.
See, we gotta get you in there.
So that's interesting. So it's not like BEP or the other certificates where you got to give them your
Right.
social, your grandkids social and all that, because they ask for a lot, but it's worth the time. This one, we just go online and fill it out.
Yes, you go online. If you search small business set aside, state of Illinois, it'll pop up. The procurement office manages that program. And I do think you have to turn in some things because they want to make sure you're actually a small business, right?
Right.
So depending on your industry, if you're retail, I think it's like $123 million. You have to prove that you have gross revenue less than $123 million. And then now you're qualified as a small business. So there is some things you have to turn in to prove that you're qualified to participate, but it's not super challenging. And the senior purchasing officers, the purchasing officers at the state love that program because it's easier for them to find and purchase what they need because the list is pre-approved essentially.
Oh, I love that. I love it. So listen, go-getters, not believers, you have multiple opportunities. So you can get a small business set-aside contract. And or you can get a BEP contract. BEP contracts can be, now, okay, let me ask you this. I'll let you answer. So we know for small business set aside, 50,000 and less.
Yes.
For a BEP contract, what is the range?
It's endless. So
I know you look like the sky's the limit. I hear the song playing.
Right. I mean, I've seen things for 500,000. I've seen things for 23 million. It just depends on what they're looking for and the budget that they have, right? And so one area that we are actively working on from an advocacy perspective is with DOIT, the Department of Technology, because as you can imagine, the tech invoices are much higher, and that's a much more lucrative piece of business to be in. And so we're doing a lot of advocacy to make sure that BEP vendors, specifically Black businesses, have better representation there. So it runs the gamut. And another misconception is that we only have to show up as subcontractors, meaning we only can get the opportunity if there's a bigger business up above and we come under to work for that big business. There are direct fulfillments as a BEP vendor. So that means you're coming in as a prime, and I'm the big business and I'm hiring other folks to work for me. And so that Black businesses do not only have to be subcontractors. And so a lot of times what would frustrate me when I was at the state of Illinois is that Black businesses would come in and say, hey, can I meet the primes? Or how do you become a prime? Or right. let's make sure you look at the capabilities that are required. Don't just be so quick to write yourself off. But they so often talk about BEP vendors being a sub, and that doesn't always have to be the case.
Yeah, I think, and I'm glad we're having this conversation, because I do believe that fear and Absolutely. Misunderstanding.
Right.
Because I know in my conversations and in the 20 years I've done business, I've gotten some great contracts. Look, to God be the glory. But it has a lot to do with what you know, who you know, right? And sometimes contracts just come off of you in the room networking and having relationships, and they know what you're doing, so they're calling you. Sometimes you got to be in a position, but this is good to know, because we are often told, because we're a minority business, a Black business, that we can't be the prime on a contract. We need to be the subcontractor. Now, but let's talk about, because I learned the hard way. Let's talk about doing business with government, right? And let's talk about those net 90 and net 20
Mm.
payments.
And net forever. And net
Net,
forever. Don't
net, I'm
come.
about to sue the city or the
Don't
state
come
because they ain't paid.
I
So
said that.
let's talk about some of those challenges. Because now it's okay to get a $20 million contract, but you got to kind of have the capacity to be able to handle the contract, right?
Absolutely. So before I even delve into that, I want to clarify, coming in as a sub is a great way to get the experience and a great way to get a start. I would not recommend going in. The likelihood of winning it is slim if you don't really have experience anyway of winning as a prime. And so going in as a sub is not a terrible opportunity. I just want to make sure that my community understand that that is not the end all be all.
Right.
But going in as a sub is an awesome way to get to getting an opportunity and getting your experience up. In terms of doing business with government, one, it moves slower. So it is not just payments, right? So let's use, for example, communication. There was a sheltered market over
Mm-hmm.
media and communications for the state of Illinois. Quick education there. What is a sheltered market? A sheltered market means, remember, BEP is minorities, women, and persons with disabilities. That's very broad, right?
Yeah.
A sheltered market means you can specify and say this procurement is for Hispanic and Black businesses, period, because Hispanic and Black businesses have suffered the most, despite all of the other individuals that are supposed to be a BEP vendor, right? So there's a shelter market over comms and PR. And so if you have comms and PR and you're doing it for the Department of Children and Family Services, you have to get approvals, right? So now you're doing business, you got the contract, you have to get approval to be able to put out a press release or to be able to design something. It's not gonna move as quickly as if you're working with a Fierce Staffing or a JP Morgan Chase, right? Because government has so many other boxes they have to check. You can talk about construction, you can talk about any other industry. It's pretty much the same thing. It moves slower. So your operations needs to be set up in a way where you can support that. Now the money, right? Also, those
Show me
processes
the money.
a little bit slower, right? Sometimes you
Yeah.
have to get things approved, whether you're at the city level and city council needs to approve a change in budget because I've taken on additional expenditures. So where it's held up there, or this council or this commissioner or the governor or what have you, right? And so there's so many other things that can hold up the process. What I've seen, some improvements have been made specifically at the state of Illinois. They have done a lot of work to make sure that faster pay, especially for disenfranchised and underrepresented companies, is improving. So that is a good report. I don't want to have always just talk about the challenges. That is a good report. And I do know that both Kenya Merritt and Mayor Johnson, that they're all invested in ensuring that the procurement process in the city of Chicago is more equitable, specifically around faster pay as well. So it's not something that nobody's talking about and is not being addressed.
Right.
So I do want to, give a shout out to the colleagues and all the folks who are working extremely hard on that space every day. But it's a reality. And even if there's federal, we haven't talked about federal procurement, right? At the
Yep.
federal level, it's even worse, right? Because you can only imagine what the boxes are there that need to be checked and all the red tape.
Yeah. And so, for all of you listening, what that means is sometimes you don't always get paid right on time. And so you have to have some finances in place, unless you got a contract and it's not taken away from anything that you've done. So in my example, when I got my contract, I was providing something for the government, right? And when they placed the order, they placed a mass order. And of course, as an entrepreneur, I'm excited about the contract. I'm like, yep, I'll take the contract. Let's do it. But then you have to think about when you're supplying product, being able to afford to purchase the product, because your manufacturer is most likely not going to give you all of it up front without being paid for, right? And so then those are things. Having the money to be able to provide whatever the product is. If it's service based, great. Um, but then if you have to pay your employees,
Mhm.
then you need money to pay payroll until that check comes from, the procurement office. The other thing I thought about, and I told you I learned the hard way, which helps you all tuned in because then I can help you. Just having relationships with banks and lenders to
Yep.
be able to say, hey, I need this $500,000 loan because it's going to make me $2 million,
Right.
but I just need it to float for a little bit. So I'm glad, but the benefit in getting these contracts will take your business to another financial bracket.
Absolutely.
Um, Even if you get a few small set asides, to
Yeah.
kick it off.
Yes, the small business set aside. There's you kind of want to start to work your way up. So I think the small business set aside is a great place to start becoming a BEP vendor, because as you grow and get experience and you're ready to scale, you have programs like the 8A certification, which is at the federal level. You only can be 8A certified for a certain number of years because the thought is that you're going to be doing business with the federal government and growing, and now you scale, right? So that's not something you sign up for right away,
Right.
but you have to be able to show experience. But there's so much opportunity, and just because there's a little bit more red tape, that doesn't mean that it's not approachable. There are programs like there are PTACs, and what that means is a Procurement Technical Assistance Center. And so there's several of them within the city of Chicago that they're set up to help you navigate the certification process, navigating an RFP process, which we haven't really had a chance to talk about what the proposals are like. But all of those resources are available to you.
Well, let's talk about that. Let's thank, thank you for
Mhm.
that. Let's talk about the proposal process, right? And just give them a glimpse into, all right, I'm an entrepreneur, Arielle. I just got BP certified. I want every contract they got.
Yes.
What do I do now? How does that look? What does that process look like?
Yes. So then these are some of the things that are frustrating because you think you're done, and then there's another thing you got to sign up for, and another thing you have to sign up for. So you're certified now as a BP vendor. Now you have to get into the supplier portal, which is a different portal than the vendor portal I talked to you about, where you show up. Now you have to sign up in bid buy. Bid buy is where you put in your preference of communication info. That's where I would definitely recommend having more than one person who receives it. And you will get targeted communications based on your industry on what the state is preparing to buy. Now, two things to know about that. Number one, they're supposed to be, what they have been is issuing a buying plan. These proposals are not quick and easy proposals like we normally shoot out, potentially in the private sector. These proposals are extremely tedious. If you miss a line or you miss a detail, you could potentially completely disqualify yourself. So it takes a lot of time. Like, you usually have a lot of, like, a month lead time, 6 weeks lead time to get your proposal completed. And so you want to be checking for the buying plan. So there's a buying plan that will tell you in Q1, this is what we intend to buy. So you're watching for your industry or for the agencies you want to do business with. So that's one. Number two, you're not going to get notified about an industry or a service, a good or service you have not indicated on your certification. It's called an NIGP code, and that's National Institute of Governmental Purchasing, and it's like a NACE code. And so even if you don't have that, you may be selling pens, right? And so you'll get all of the procurement opportunities for people who are buying pens. But if you don't put on there that I also sell pencils, you
Mm.
won't get the opportunities for the pencils unless are intentional about listing both, right? And so everything you do, that's why you don't want to make it a rush job when you get certified. Everything you do, you want to put it down on your certification and within bid buy, so that every time the state is purchasing those goods or services, you get the alert. It's real frustrating. It was something that we're working on, and hopefully well, we were working on it, not there anymore, but that they continue to figure out how to make that process easier. Even with goal setting, when we talk about how the state sets their goals, they set it based on those NIGP codes. So if ain't no
Right.
black folks that say I sell computer monitors, then they're going to say that's a 0% goal because there's no availability of anyone who does that. That's a certified vendor.
Oh, okay. So based on then they set the goal for doing a percentage of business that goes to minorities, African Americans. Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Listen. I don't know about you, believers, go getters, believers, whatever you want to be tonight. Arielle is dropping some gems, and it's so important that we understand this contracting process because it keeps a lot of our businesses on the outside because we don't have certifications. Now, I don't believe every business should be certified. If you have a business that is not looking to do business with the government or major corporations, I don't think you need to be certified. What'd you say, Arielle?
I agree.
Okay, just checking. You the pro. I'm just, I'm just trying. But if you have a business and a service or product that the government or these major corporations use, or you can sell to them, you need to be certified.
Yep.
Because then, you know what I hear a lot, Arielle? Well, how did you get that grant? How did you get that contract? Because if you stay ready, you don't have to get ready.
Exactly.
And when they
Exactly.
put the call out, because they'll put the call out that we need it, you just have to be certified. So we talked about the process. We talked about a few of the hurdles. We talked about the big money. It can be big money in doing business with the government. But unfortunately, you did say something that's been just sticking out to me. And it
Mm-hmm.
made me think you definitely need somebody dedicated to answering these requests
Mm-hmm.
if it cannot be you.
Yeah.
And if you can't afford to hire somebody full time, shameless plug, you can call the Dream Center. We can help you. But there are times that I get from Chicago Public Schools, I probably get daily emails.
Yeah.
And because I check I have the general Dream Center email on my phone, my email, and the support email. So I'm seeing them. And I can honestly say it's been times I'm like, oh, Lord, another one. But in
Right.
my mind, we should be saying another one. Yes, let's apply because they're targeted.
Right.
And luckily, we do have someone at the Dream Center that does all of that for us. So I can be like
Yeah.
walking, moving it away. But if you're watching and you don't, but get set up. And when you get there, then you can and move. And that one contract will be able to help you hire somebody. So, Arielle, there are some contracting opportunities that
Mm-hmm.
are out present, coming on the way.
Mm-hmm.
Can you drop us some inside scoop or look? No, just talk about some of the opportunities that are here now, right?
Yes. And so pull the I can't put it in a chat. Pull the Q1 buying plan, or I think the Q2 buying plan from the state of Illinois, right? And also the city of Chicago also issued their buying plan. You know where you can find it? You can find it on the BLC Chicago website. If you pull up our first newsletter for 2024, at the bottom we have all the links to the buying plans.
What's BLC site?
BLC Chicago
Dot org.
.com.
.com.
And so it's on our newsletter that went out at the beginning of the year. You can also join our newsletter list from that website as well. And so all of those buying plans tells you what's coming up. There are also other buying opportunities from other large events and large corporations that aren't usually as public. And so maybe that's a whole nother session. But when you start talking about the private sector, um,
Yes.
the CMSDC, the chambers, they do their expos that are coming up. There are supplier meet and greets, and all of those are opportunities to figure out what's happening in the private sector, which sometimes ask if you're certified as well, because that's just them doing their due diligence to making sure that they are doing business with a diverse supplier. So sometimes they'll ask if you're certified. It may not be required, but they want to make sure that they are being intentional about doing business with a diverse supplier as well. And so one thing that I would want to say, though, in addition to the RFP process, is just because it's government and government can be boring doesn't mean that your proposal has to be boring, right? So tell the cool stories, write out a cool narrative, have the logos. Sometimes there are, again, you have to follow the processes. They say no photos. They say, no names, or certain things they'll, depending on what you're bidding on, there's instructions as to what they don't want you to provide. But when you have the opportunity to show off your differentiator and what makes you great, you don't not do it just because it's a very boring governmental process. You still have your marketing, your branding that shows, right, all that you've invested in your company.
Yep. Oh man, listen. I hate I didn't have my pen and paper because I have no desk with me right now. But I know everyone tuned in is wow. We shout out to everybody who puts up with Action Jackson's last minute shenanigans. I tell you that much. I think it works better though for some people. And we did give notice, but we got about 225 people tuned in right now.
Oh, wow. That's awesome.
Between Instagram, 103, and on Facebook, 122. Somebody new just joined. But if you just joined in, we are talking to the CEO of Business Leadership Council Chicago, Ms. Arielle. Arielle or Arielle? Am I saying?
It's Arielle, like the mermaid, but all my cousins say Arielle, so I just was going with it.
Okay, I want to make sure you all say it right, Arielle. She is profound, proficient, and amazing when it comes to business advocacy, contracting. She used to run BEP for the state of Illinois, which I kind of want to talk about. And we almost to the end, but I want to make sure we drop some gems that we go viral, right? No. What are the top industries when it comes to, like, let's just say BEP contracting and contracting in general, but we'll stick with BEP for now. What are some of the top, if you can, maybe top 3, top 5 industries that big money is spent?
So I actually don't love this, but it is construction. And so if you look at the Capital Development Board or Tollway, which has some of their own certifications, if you have an agency that you want to do business with, you should be researching that agency, because sometimes there's other ways in the door. Both the Tollway, the Department of Transportation, they have other certifications, a DBE, a disenfranchised business enterprise, I think. Each one of those, they have certifications that can get you in the door. That is where we've seen the most participation in the construction industry, which is amazing. And we have amazing construction firms that are members of the BLC, but we can do so much more. The other most lucrative are tech, but we don't have a lot of representation there. We're working on it. Comms and media. And I believe it was transportation. There was some transportation because of the folks who are supporting with Department of Human Services and some of the transit services that are required there as well. But that information is accessible on the State of Illinois website. If you go to look up the Business Enterprise Program, you can pull their annual report. And their annual report will tell you how much was spent in the last budget year with any BEP vendors, and it breaks down all that data, and then it breaks it down by agency. So it's a lot of reading, it's paperwork, it's reporting. I nerd out on the data. I love it. And so I'm happy to talk about it. But we can literally pull up the annual report. One other nugget I want to throw out is that government contracts are public once they're executed usually. So, or you should be able to find an old one. So if you want to know what a government contract looked like, or how someone even priced themselves, maybe it is probably old, 5 years ago or what have you, you may be able to find that information. Maybe it's not exactly what you're doing or that agency, but just to educate yourself, right, on what the language is, how businesses are pricing themselves to help you understand. All of that's public information.
I'm glad you said that. I used to do a lot of research online to learn how to prepare my contracts and my RFPs, my proposals. And now, is there a specific site that people can go to find those awarded contracts?
It depends on the on the agency and or municipality, wherever you are. Everyone displays them differently. I know that I've been able to find past contracts for temporary staffing, and the rates were old, right? So if I was looking at rates from 2018, you inflate them boys a little bit now because it's no longer
you're gonna be short,
right? But what it did is it showed me like, oh, okay, this is what they were thinking back then, and this is what the structure looked like back then, and it just helps to give you some clarity as to how to move forward, because we don't have a mentor who's built a multi-million-dollar company to call and ask, what am I supposed to do? And a PTAC even can't even tell you. They can help you build the process, but they can't tell you how to price yourself, right?
Yeah.
So that's a whole nother Action Jackson session for the Dream Center to educate you on properly pricing yourself. But
yeah, because that's a big one.
Yeah, it's a lot.
Because we sometimes we outprice ourselves or we underprice ourselves,
right?
And so we lose either way.
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah. Well, you said you've been dropping some real nuggets. And this is definitely an ongoing conversation, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because we definitely need to continue to educate people and show them how to do contract, get contracts, and be prepared to get the contract. I had a very good question for you about contracting, and it just left me because you were dropping so many nuggets. I'm like, dang, she didn't answer 3 of my questions in one. When it comes to contracting, we were talking about some opportunities that are available. Yeah. Now, we talked about the sectors before we go there, because you know who I'm talking about. Who's coming to Chicago. I just wanted you to, we got to talk about that. And most people don't understand when those types of things come, how we should be getting in position to get contracts, right? But before we go there, before we turn that page, I do want to ask you, we talked about some of the top agencies. I'm glad I fall in number 3, comms and media. Yes. I'm coming for the bag, all of them. When we talked earlier about being a prime, and a prime, for those of you that don't know, you actually are the lead on the contract. You get the contract, and then you subcontract it out. Right. This could be a long conversation. We won't touch long, but that's important to know about collaboration, right? Yes. And let's talk about the importance of collaborating on these contracts.
Yes. So, one, added capacity. So if I'm talking to Action Jackson and he got 50K and I got 50K and he has an assistant and I have an assistant, now we both have built our financial capacity and we've both built our team. That's enough for collaboration in and of itself right there. But also he has his resume and his past work and his experience now paired with my resume and my past work. This applies whether you black, brown, yellow, white, green, male, female, right? And so that is valuable regardless across the board. As a Black community, that's a much longer conversation, but even more so, it's so important for us to collaborate because we have such a hard time finding opportunities to be represented. But that's my quick answer because I know we're short on time.
Yeah, we can go all night, but I do want to say, in the spirit of Black History Month, for all look, put my hand in that camera. Learn how to collaborate. Quit looking at everyone as a competitor.
Right.
Start going in rooms looking at people as a potential collaborator, right? Because if we can collaborate together, we can get other communities are doing it.
Right.
Am I wrong?
No, and what we see when I was on the other side of the table, what we see is all this opportunity over here, and then we see this small opportunity here, which is crumbs, right? Compared to the $1 trillion budget that exists, and a community fighting over crumbs of
Yep.
when we could have collaborated and gone off after all of the big work that everyone else is competing for. But because we're so busy competing within our own community, we haven't even seen the real opportunities that are there.
Yeah, and I can't impress upon you as much as I want to. Go get us tuned in. Shout out to Harry Bell, Sugar, Sharice, Eddie on Instagram. I'm trying. Y'all know I can't multitask, but I'm trying with all
Everything
these.
buzzing and ringing.
I know I got a phone ring. I'm like, Lord, I got babies crying, but I am. We by any means necessary, I was gonna make sure we got this information out tonight. If I had to sit on my front porch with the camera and the ring light, but it's important. And I've been in rooms, and Arielle has been in rooms where we see other ethnicities, other communities coming together and getting multi-million-dollar contracts, all because they collaborated together. They didn't walk in the room saying, "Oh, I want all 20 million to myself," or all 2 million. It don't even have to be, or all 200,000. They said, "Hey, we gonna share this, and we all get a piece of this pie." But then we walk in the room and say, "Nope, I don't want to partner with nobody," and then you get none of the pie.
Exactly.
What sense does that make?
None.
And I think you and I talked when we met. And next week I'll make sure there are no phones in the room because these people are blowing me up, man. And I'm sure it's people watching the live. You know, they love to call you while you live.
Right.
But no, we talked about just the potential of us really working together and collaborating. And I had people always saying, "Well, I can't trust them. I don't know." That's what lawyers and contracts are for, and CPAs to manage money and cut checks.
Right. That part.
As simple as that. You know, you cannot be afraid to work and collaborate with somebody because fear will keep you out the room each time. So, Arielle, before we go, I want those that are tuned in to hear about some opportunities that have come to the city, how they need to pay attention to these type of opportunities, and what do you know? Give them a sneak peek. I know it ain't too much of a sneak peek, but let them know about some of these major events that are coming that will be doing business with minority businesses.
Absolutely. So I have some updates. The Diversity Advisory Council of the Democratic National Convention met today. Shauna told me to tell you what up.
Okay.
Before we jump into that, though, I do want to just remind folks for certification, for your operating agreements. It asks for all these things. If you put on your letterhead, "I did not purchase this business, I started it XYZ," and you sign it, that can be the documentation you upload. But that's just there. There are some opportunities coming up to participate in some supplier summits for the Democratic National Convention. And so those primes that we talked about, the prime, have been assigned. So now the prime contractors are looking for the subs that will support them. So there is currently an opportunity out for credentialing. They have separated, there's several things within credentialing that you could do. It could be printing the credentials or software, etc. It's all outlined within that RFP. And the questions are going to be due later next week. If you want to go in, fill out the vendor portal, and request the the RFP, you can put in your intent to bid, as well as submit any questions. There's also one for transportation. We talked about transportation being a space where there's not a lot of representation. There is also an RFP coming out for that. In mid-March, there's going to be a supplier event primarily for the construction industry. And then a few weeks after that, there's going to be an event for the hospitality industry, as well as other professional services. So the number one thing you want to do is get signed up in chicago2024.com in the vendor portal, so you can get that information yourself. I always post it on my social media. BLC, they also have Chicago 2024 also has their own Instagram that you can follow to follow updates for the DNC as well. But a lot more is still coming. And again, it may be the opportunity to start to get that experience that you need.
The DNC is a major opportunity. And I've been through some of the RFPs, and you just have to know. And this goes back to collaboration, even on the subcontracts, right?
Right.
If you don't have the capacity to fulfill the entire contract, think about who's in your circle that can partner with you to submit the subcontract.
Right.
Any contract is better than no contract.
Exactly.
And Arielle has definitely educated you on the process tonight. And we've given you as much as we can give you in this power-packed hour. If we could, it would be 3, 4, 5, 8-hour session.
Right. Right.
Of course, it would be free like this life. But this business. But no, in all seriousness, I want you all to be paying attention to things like the DNC coming. See how you can get in where you fit in. Attend information sessions. Register on their website. Follow BLC on Instagram. What's that handle?
BLC Chicago?
Yes, at BLC Chicago. Make sure you subscribe to their list. Subscribe to the Dream Center email list. We send out weekly emails and monthly where we've been updating our grant list. Grants are good.
Yep.
Grants are good. Contracts are even better.
Help you scale. Help you grow.
Yes. It'll help you scale and grow. Arielle we got DNC. What about NASCAR? Is NASCAR opening up any opportunities?
Yes, NASCAR does have a supplier portal. We need to share it. So I'll make sure that we get it shared out. You might be able to look up a NASCAR Chicago. I don't know if it's on their website yet, but NASCAR does have a supplier portal. And they are working to be more intentional this year on their diverse contracting practices.
The biggest thing I hear people always say, how did you get this grant? How did you get that contract? The same people get this. The same people get that. And I ask one question. Did you apply? And most of the time the answer is no. So you can't cry over something you didn't even do. So here we are showing you how to do it, how to level up, how to do business with the government. We will do a follow-up. Look, Arielle, I'm booking you already. We're going to do a follow-up, a more in-depth workshop and class and walk you through some stuff. But we definitely just in the spirit of Black History Month and Black History every day, right?
Every day.
If you want to be in the history books, you got to do your business right. So Arielle Johnson, thank you for joining me. You're doing amazing work at BLC. Now, if anybody wanted to become a member or inquire about BLC, how do they do that?
On our website, there is a Join Us page that describes the different membership levels, and you can complete an interest form there.
And the social media handle for BLC is at BLC Chicago. Arielle, you're doing amazing things outside of BLC. We didn't even really get to touch on Fear Staffing. You're doing some phenomenal work with that. But how can people connect with you personally if they want you to come and speak at their workshop, be interviewed on their podcast or TV show? I'm your manager, so I got to get you out there.
Exactly. I'm Arielle Johnson on LinkedIn. I'm very active on LinkedIn at Arielle J. Fierce. like Sasha Fierce, Arielle J Fierce on Instagram. I do respond, and if I'm available, I will do my best to support.
All right. Now, in closing, can you give, if you needed to, a closing remark, a minute to, 2 minutes, just an inspiring closing remark to the audience?
Absolutely. So if you were given a passion, you absolutely have the ability to scale it and build it. But what I recommend is to go and find the inspiration and understand what quality looks like. There's a lot of folks that are doing similar things, but only you can bring the quality. Only you have the differentiator to be able to truly grow it and build it. So do your research so that you can show up and show what true Black excellence looks like.
Oh, I love it. And we definitely want to show true Black excellence. Arielle Johnson, everyone, make some noise, make some noise. I know she can only hear me, but that's okay. Arielle, thank you for taking time out of your night. I pray nothing but great success over your life, over your business, and over BLC. And we will definitely send me the link, some of the links that you talked about. I'm going to share them on social media so that we can make sure everybody has access to it. But thank you again for coming on and for advocating for Black business.
Thank you for all you do to help educate everybody. Appreciate you.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. Go get us. Go get us. Listen, thank you for tuning in to the Dreaming Out Loud podcast series, brought to you by the Dream Center Co-working and Business Support Services. We just wrapped up a great conversation with Arielle Johnson, the CEO of Business Leadership Council Chicago. And we talked all things doing contracts. If you have not, make sure you go follow BLC Chicago on Instagram. Make sure you are connected with the Dream Center. All of this information that we had tonight will make sure that we include it in our newsletter this week. So make sure you signed up. Sign up for all of these newsletters because each newsletter has different resources that will definitely help level you up. If you need help starting or growing your business, connect with the Dream Center. Until next Monday we got Tiffany Hope, the owner of Studio 92 Hair. She created a multi-million-dollar hair business. And then the following Monday, the last Monday of the month, we have Farrah Gray, best-selling author, entrepreneur. He's killing the game. So you don't want to miss it. Monday at 6 p.m. Oh, and of course, tune in to the Brunch Bunch, Monday through Friday, 12 p.m. to 1 p.m. on Inspiration 1390. This has been your main man, Action Jackson, the CEO of the Dream Center. And with that, I am out. Enjoy the rest of your night.